Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, we are a tad late. We are happy that you've joined us. Dr. Chidi is here, I see, and we welcome you. Those of you who are on Zoom, those of you who are on YouTube, and those of us few who are in the sanctuary, welcome. Before I turn it over to my co-hosts, I just want to have a word of prayer. So, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this morning, for the lessons we've learned, the tips that Dr. Chidi shared, and we are so happy that we're able to come back this afternoon to gain more understanding on how we may take care of our health, mentally, spiritually, and physically, and how these relate. Thank you so much, Father, and grant us thy peace. Amen. So my youth leaders are going to take over. And so Javier, Mirela, all yours.
Perfect. So this weekend, we have the opportunity to explore the theme of mental health and well-being with Dr. Chidi's focus in our worship this morning on stress and depression. It was amazing.
With COVID-19, we've got a situation here that's a lot that we do not know. We have relatively weak controls such as hand washing, physical distancing, and wearing our masks. It's all over television and social media. While any change to our regular day or routine can affect our mental health, this situation is doubly challenging because news of the pandemic is virtually inescapable, and there's no clear end date. Dr. Chidi's presentation this afternoon will pay special attention to the COVID-19 pandemic and its effect on mental health and well-being.
I am particularly excited and looking forward to this focus on our youth, especially as a new youth leader. I am so excited to have so much focus on with them, all the events happening. I really want to make sure that they are in their best mental well-being, especially now with most of the university students going into their exams, like myself, for example. And of course, even those that are still in elementary and high school, I hope that they're still in their best mental state, possibly, and of course, just maintaining their stress levels as much as we can. And as we move forward, I'd like to introduce everyone and tell you guys a little bit about each one of us. So maybe we can start with Dr. Carol.
Oh, I am Carol Henry. I think. Are we on? Okay, thank you. I'm Carol Henry, and I am the Health Ministries Director for this year.
Okay, my name is Javier Clarke, and I'm a university student at the University of Saskatchewan right now, and I am also a youth in Pine House Drive Seventh-day Adventist Church.
That's awesome. And myself, I am Mirela Rotaru, and I am the new youth leader in Pine House Drive Church, which I'm very excited about. There's a few questions here. I don't know if you guys wanted to answer them just to kind of give a little of a banter to everyone else. One of the questions we had here is, if you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice on the first day of 2020, what would it be? I thought about this actually all week, and I think a piece of advice for me was to be patient with myself. I think that was, as I know, generally I am a patient person, but I think with everything that happened, I kind of reached maybe a little bit of my limit. So I think that was something that I had to keep in mind and just be aware of everything going on, and just being patient with everything, and even with God as well. So I think that was something that I could probably tell myself at the beginning. That's maybe that big piece of advice for myself. So I don't know if you guys had the same thing.
I agree with that, but also for me, it would be something I would say to myself would be go outside more. You know,
Yes.
It's really easy to be, because I'm just started university, it's my first year, right? So it's really easy to stay inside and sit at your desk and just like watch all the lectures and do a homework for a really long time and not really take time to say, okay, I'm gonna go outside and get some fresh air, or I'm gonna go play a sport or something, just go for a run, So it's really easy for you to get like trapped inside. And so I would say, and right now during this period, I'm going outside more. I go to the gym now, so it's
That's
very, very
awesome.
good for my mental health. And so I would have said that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it was especially hard because it was the colder weather, so we couldn't get outside as much. But now I think it's warming up and it's looking like it'll be summer pretty soon. So please take advantage of going outside, taking in that fresh air, and of course that will help and benefit you in very many ways. Dr. Carol?
So I think if the one thing I've learned through this whole year of COVID-19 is to slow down. I still remember January 2020 when I was looking forward to traveling to Bangladesh and to the Cayman Islands and up to Nunavut, and then came COVID. And I learned that a lot of things could be done without me having to be there, and I needed to slow down. So patience, getting outside, yep, all a part of slowing down.
That's awesome. Maybe a little bit more would just be, what do you remember from your last day or normal day pre-COVID? I know for me, I was interning at Walter Murray actually, and the very next day, everything had shut down. So I didn't even get to complete my internship, but it was still an awesome experience. I just remember being very sad that everything had to close down, but it's okay. I just remember that being my very last normal day, as we say. So I don't know if you guys remember.
That's difficult. Probably. So I played basketball for Walter Murray.
Yes.
And our last game, and probably the last normal day before everything like became COVID restricted and all that stuff, we played our semi-final game, which we won.
Oh, wow.
But we weren't able to go to the semi-finals because it wasn't going to happen, and so we didn't get to go to provincials either. So everything, our entire season rested on that one game, and we ended up winning, but it was really sad that we didn't get to go any further than that.
You know, that's still a victory. I think it's still a big win despite that. So I don't know. I mean, maybe next year, this coming up year, you guys will be able to play again. We will have to see how the year goes, of course.
So my last memory was I was coming back from a conference in Nunavut, and we stopped in the Yukon Territory, and we were so excited, my colleague and I, that we could go get a latte at one of the places.
Oh, cool.
And that was the last one. And then came COVID.
Perfect.
All right, so we are moving on. And for a lot of us, most of us know a little bit about the elderly and also what it's like to live alone. Few of us do. And so Elder Marie is going to share with us about isolation, lonesomeness, and how we need to help those around. Dr. Chidi this morning talked about growing together, helping each other. And I think that's what she's going to share for us. And I just want to share a little bit about her because it was interesting for me to learn that she's worked for about 30 years as an RN. She celebrated her 30-year anniversary with her classmates last weekend from one of the Adventist college in the Philippines, Mountain View College. She's had various experiences in nursing, including as a nursing professor, and also her favorite all-time is in mental health, psychiatric nursing. She has a master's degree in nursing service administration. Currently, she works at the Sunnyside Sunnyside Adventist Care Center, where she is director of care. And we're so excited that we can hear from her this afternoon. So for the next 10 or so minutes, sit back, relax.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you for the opportunity to share something with this group, especially for our mental health emphasis. I have my PowerPoint, and then I will it will be shared to you, and then you will see the whole presentation. I hope we all learned something from this. Thank you. Asa naman?
Apologize for some of the technical difficulties that we are having with Elder Maria, but we will move forward with Dr. Chidi. So for those of you who are not able to attend this morning's session, Dr. Chidi is a leading lifestyle physician, having trained in surgery, general practice, and lifestyle medicine at Cambridge, UCL, and Johns Hopkins University Medical Center in the USA. His passion is to reverse, improve, or prevent chronic illnesses, including heart disease, cancer, arthritis, and diabetes, among others, with his unique program, Life Colors. He is a founding board member of the European Society of Lifestyle Medicine and has over 20 years of experience as a national and international health and motivational speaker, including presenting TED Talks on reversing disease. He has served at the South England Conference for 10 years, 6 years as men's ministry coordinator, and 4 years as health director, where he continues to serve. He has also served as an elder at 3 churches in Croydon, Norbury, and Hampstead, where he served as the head elder. He has received many awards, including in 2016, a National Award in Leadership for his work in reversing disease. His mission is to bring health, healing, and hope to communities in the SEC and beyond. So we would love to welcome you, Dr. Chidi, at this moment. Okay. Thank you so much. Can you hear us well? Oh. We're just going to see what is happening. Yes, we can hear you very well. Thank you so much, Dr. Chidi, for joining us. And we are so excited to hear some more. So the time is yours.
Now, thank you very much and welcome back. Yes, I know, with these Zoom meetings, high technology, you have to expect a few glitches, right? You have to expect just a few. And you might think it could be a test for your stress levels. You might think that, okay, but we were talking about stress and depression this morning. This afternoon, we're going to hopefully try to say rest in peace to COVID-19. It will be difficult to talk without talking about COVID-19. It's had such an overbearing impact on all of our lives, and many of us here would have lost people. Now, let me just see, can you actually see the picture in front of you? Just put a thumb up, somebody, if you can see the picture in front of you. Can you see the picture in front of you? Thumbs up. Okay, right, fantastic, excellent. Going back, I have this program about life colors, how to reverse diseases, and each color represents a different disease. Those of you who didn't see my details in the morning, these are my details, ways you can contact me. You may have other questions that we won't cover today. Now, these are my specialties, really. I try to help people reverse these diseases. And the thing with COVID-19, it's related to everything. It has related and made everything worse. But let's just get a little bit of a background on this virus. It is one of the coronaviruses that you may have heard of. We've had SARS, we've had MERS, now we have COVID-19 emanating originally from China. One of the interesting things about viruses is that all the viruses that we get come from animals. You can't name a virus that has been derived from anything other than another animal. Okay, from anything other than another animal. So we're spending billions of pounds, dollars, and yuan all over the world trying to find the cure, trying to find the vaccine, trying to find everything we can do to beat COVID-19. But sometimes prevention is better than cure. If we could stop some of these farming practices, stop some of the things that we are consuming, we would not have these repetitions of viruses that come out almost every single year. Okay, wait a second. Now, why can I not move forward? Okay. Oh, that's great. Oh, can you see me? I'm sorry about this. Are you still following this okay? Thumb up? Everybody put a thumb up? No. Okay. I just want to say. All right, let me carry on then. What's the lethality of COVID-19? I mean, how does it kill people in comparison to other viruses? You can see seasonal flu up there is 0.01%. Coronavirus was round about the 3% mark, but things such as Ebola would be 50%, meaning that 50% of the people who get the infection would die. At its worst for coronavirus, somewhere around 3% would die. But here's the interesting thing for me is that, and this was done about approximately a year ago in Italy, and it showed that over 99% of the people who died from COVID-19 had another underlying illness. So an illness such as hypertension, diabetes, cancer. And I think to myself that, look, these chronic diseases are a bit like a bear stalking us in the distance. You know, it's not close enough to kill us, but we're not happy that the bear is there. That's a bit like a lot of these chronic diseases. They're there, they're not imminently going to kill us. We wouldn't like them to be there, but you know, we can deal with it. I can go to my hospital appointments. I can take my medication. I don't want to do it, but I can do it, and it's not going to kill me tomorrow. But what coronavirus has done is almost given that Baron a rocket booster, so that it's now, rather than being far in the distance, it's right on our shoulder. That coronavirus will turn diabetes, heart disease, cancer into something that is imminently lethal. And so if we're going to try to address the issues of coronavirus, why don't we look at the underlying diseases? Because if we could do something to get rid of the underlying disease, we could probably reduce our risk of even getting and certainly dying from coronavirus. So let's think about this. Let's start with the heart. What one thing, I mean, there are many things we can do, but what one thing would I recommend that you do to lower your risk of heart disease? Well, the best thing to do is have a healthy plant-based diet. It reduces the risk of everybody up and down. Doesn't matter your race, sex, age. If you increase a plant-based diet, a healthy plant-based diet, you will vastly reduce your risk of any sort of heart disease. And whilst you're doing that, you're reducing your risk of having a fatal or a very damaging COVID-19. What would I do, number two, for blood pressure? Just one thing. The one thing I would do for blood pressure is to encourage people to take more greens. I think when I was there last time, I mentioned to you that greens, when we digest them, they release this chemical inside of our arteries called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide opens up the arteries. Nitric oxide is the active ingredient in Cialis, or we call it Viagra here. So for all the men who tell me that they don't want to eat rabbit food, rabbits don't need Viagra. I'll move on. Number three, the answer to cancer. What one thing would I do to encourage people to lower their risk of cancer, and even if they do have cancer, what could help reduce the outcome of it? Well, one thing is to spice up your life. Many of the spices in our dinner plates are actually powerful tools to defeat cancer. You look at something like turmeric, which is one of the most powerful antioxidants. What does that mean? It means it stops the oxidizing of things like our DNA. If it stops oxidation of DNA, it will stop the risk of cancer, because many cancers start with the oxidation or chemical reactions that happen in the DNA. Ginger, something like ginger, is a wonderful anti-inflammatory. The less inflamed our system is, the less likely we are to get cancer. Cinnamon is something that can help to lower blood sugar. The lower our blood sugar, the less likely that cancer can grow. You know, cancer consumes sugar at about 20 times the rate of a normal cell. So the lower the amounts of sugar in our blood or in our system, the less likely it is that cancer cells are going to be able to proliferate and grow. Cardamom is a very interesting spice. What it does, it activates those natural killer cells, especially those natural killer cells around our bowels. It activates them, meaning that they're just more, they have more life. They're able to fight infections, they're able to fight cancers a lot better. So just these 4 spices alone, but there are a myriad of them, but the more spices in your life can decrease our risk of cancer. And by the way, the more spice you put in your food, the less need you have for things like salt, which raises up your blood pressure. Next thing, beating diabetes. What one thing would I recommend? Well, the studies tell us that just by taking a walk after a meal, just by taking a walk, you are going to reduce the amount of blood sugar. Those big muscles you use for walking, they're unlike most cells in the body. Most cells in the body need insulin to absorb glucose. Muscle cells do not need insulin. They will just absorb it directly. So if you use your big muscles to go out for a walk after any meal, even if it's a healthy meal, your blood sugar levels will stay reasonably low. That means your insulin requirement stays low. Your cells become more insulin sensitive because they're less insulin resistant. So just going for a walk, perfect exercise. And you know, when I was a youngster, I used to read some things from Ellen White. I remember when I was a teenager, I used to think I knew everything. And I read where Ellen White said, after each meal, go for a walk. And the prevailing knowledge of the day amongst the scientists was, well, if you go for a walk after a meal, you're going to get indigestion. But today we use that as a tool to heal people from diabetes and to heal people from obesity. So, way ahead of her time, inspired woman indeed. Avoiding friendly fire, that means autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune diseases are where our antibodies attack our cells. That's why we call it friendly fire. How on earth would I reduce the risk of autoimmune disease? Well, there are hundreds of them all over the body. I mean, wherever you have tissue, you have antibodies that will attack that tissue, and that makes an autoimmune disease. One thing I would tell you to do is don't have a cowman. Who said that? Well, that'll be a question. You can answer that at the end. The New England Journal of Medicine, 1992, told us that bovine protein, that's cow protein, especially that in milk, triggers type 1 diabetes. We used to call it childhood diabetes. So it's not because of their lifestyle, but it's because of this bovine protein that's triggered them to destroy their own pancreases. Most children who get type 1 diabetes get it because of some kind of an insult, such as an autoimmune reaction. How do we fight this battle of the bulge, obesity? What one thing would I give you? I'd say, well, let's try to get rid of the white stuff. This is not a racist comment. We're talking about sugar. Given the choice between the apple and the donut, hopefully we'll take the apple. That white stuff, it does so many things. It actually causes us to raise our insulin levels, which we've talked about, can make you more diabetic. But those insulin levels tell the body to generate more fat, to build more fat. And obviously, the more you do that, the more overweight we become. It also hardens our arteries. So it's doing an awful lot of damage. So let's stop being slaves to the white stuff. We used to be slaves for sugar. Now, many of us, sometimes including myself, are slaves to sugar. We mustn't forget dementia. If you're asking people which is the most serious lifestyle disease you're more afraid of today, it would be dementia, losing your memory. Many of us will have loved ones who have had dementia, and for many people, it's getting earlier in their lifestyles, in their life spans, actually. And the research that has been done from a lifestyle point of view is very encouraging. And I'll say this, and this is absolutely true. It doesn't sound like it's true, but it is true. If you get these symptoms, you control them early enough, and you change your lifestyle, you are able to reverse 90% of the symptoms of dementia. So if you track it early and change the lifestyle, you can reverse 90% of the symptoms. One of the things you can do is to try and get a very good memory, you got to eat your berries. There's lots of studies, especially done on blueberries, but it probably refers to all berries because they're massively high in antioxidants, that the more of those that you have, you can lower your risk and you can start to reverse some of the symptoms of early onset dementia. Berries, turmeric, all those powerful antioxidants definitely work. But linked actually to dementia is stress and depression. In fact, the biggest cause of dementia is long periods of stress or depression in the life. And as we said this morning, the thing we need to do is to try to get help very early. That's one thing we could do. We listed many other things in the morning. And we have to remember that, this is a deeply emotional problem. It doesn't just go away. So what we need to do is get to the root cause of the problem. Because once you do that, all of these diseases, all these lists of diseases can actually go away. That's why I spend an awful lot of my time involved in it. As we've got a few minutes, I did want to say something else. So what I've just been saying is these are ways that we can reduce the risk of of COVID-19. So all of these diseases are underlying diseases that make COVID-19 more lethal for us. If we can get rid of these diseases, we have less than 0.8% chance of becoming a fatality to COVID-19. Wonderful, fantastic, marvelous, and good. So underlying diseases, get rid of that. The next thing, though, is something that I may have talked to you before about, and that is, well, you've seen the problem that many, let's say, African Americans or people of African Asian and Caribbean origin, they seem to be more susceptible to COVID-19, and especially in the Northern Hemisphere. So this is something taken from the United States, Louisiana. Black people are 32% of the population. When it comes to COVID deaths, they are 70% of the population. Illinois, they're 15%, but they take up 42% of the COVID-19 deaths. Now, there are many, many reasons as to why this would happen. I've spent time talking with the government in Britain about what I think those reasons are. But there's one thing that can really help us out here. When you look at some of the statistics, this was taken over a year ago, or exactly a year ago, from Africa, the numbers were very low compared to what was going on in Europe and North America. So these are African Black people, but suffering less from COVID-19 than the people in the West. And what we found is that vitamin D had a huge part to play. They did this placebo trial in several years ago, and we realized that, so the orange column is the placebo, the blue is 800 units of vitamin D, and the dark red is 2,000 units of vitamin D. And this is talking about the percentage of people who have symptoms of influenza. So we've known if people get enough vitamin D, their incidence of having symptoms goes down. The placebo is no vitamin D, right? So you can see in winter, high, up to almost 25% of people. But if you have just 800 units of vitamin D, it goes down to almost nothing. It goes down even lower if you're in the summer and if you have a higher dose of vitamin D. So we've known that coronaviruses respond to vitamin D. Recently, we've discovered that even with test cases for vitamin D deficiency, we realize that people have worse outcomes if they have lower levels of vitamin D in their blood. So you can see the red, amber, and green. Green represents sufficient levels of vitamin D, amber lacking, and red very critically low. Now, you can see in those 4 columns of people with their symptoms, you've got critical people and severe people, severe cases of COVID-19. They all have high proportions of people with very low vitamin D levels. On the right, the green column, which is all mild, relatively normal levels of vitamin D. So very mild symptoms of COVID-19 if you have sufficient vitamin D levels. And this is still being looked into, but it wouldn't hurt us to make sure our vitamin D levels are up, especially in the parts of the world where you live, because sometimes the sun doesn't shine for quite a long time. Okay. I am going to pause there for a bit as we're going to take a load of questions, I believe. I'm going to hand it back to you.
Hello. Oh, I don't know, my microphone is not working right now, but thank you so much, Dr. Chidi. I'm so grateful for the information so far. Actually, the one thing that you were just talking about the vitamin D, it actually struck with me a lot because I had to do a year in Quebec for school, and the one thing that they did tell us when we went there or before we left was to take vitamin D supplements with us, because here in Saskatchewan, we are so used to so much sunshine versus there, not so much. And I did not see or did not think that it would affect me as much. But once I got there, I definitely noticed how my mood changed, how I was dealing with everything was definitely very significant. So thank you once again. As a youth leader, I think my questions are oriented more towards them because I would like to advocate for them. I think a big question is for the young people that are in school right now, and especially with COVID and the media, it might be a lot to handle. So I think my question would be, what kind of strategies do you think we could use with our young people so that they are not feeling as overwhelmed? You know, with ours, schools are opening and closing so many times throughout the year. Hopefully, we can find ways to so that they can deal with their stress a lot better. What do you think we can recommend to our youth? Oh. I think we have to get you unmuted first. Just one moment there. He needs to be unmuted. There we go.
Thank you very much. Can you just kindly repeat the question, please?
Mostly directly for young people and our youth, what kind of strategies do you think that we can give them in terms of dealing with stress? Because school is a lot to deal with, and on top of that, we've got COVID. Schools are closing down left and right, or reopening and going back. It's such a big thing to handle. I know for myself it was, so, and I can only imagine what it is for all the younger people. So what do you think we can tell them, or some kind of advice or strategy that they can use towards this?
Well, thank you. That is a great question, and I'm going to try to give you the most honest and useful answer I can possibly do. I don't want to sound cliche, but it may sound a little bit. But look, when I was a teenager, when I was younger, even now, really, you're never going to be able to avoid stressful situations. Never. For the rest of your life, you're going to be challenged. Whether it's school, university, family, work, your neighbors, whatever, you're never going to escape it. So what we have to do is understand, well, how can I respond better to it? How do I respond to it? Because you can be in a situation where everything's chaotic and stressful, but it doesn't mean that you have to be punished because of it. So it's our response. Now, part of the thing I said this morning, that bit about, well, let me put it this way. Understanding is key. I mentioned a bit about forgiveness in the morning. Understanding is absolutely key. If you wanted to do the first step towards forgiveness, it is learning to understand, well, I wonder where this person is coming from, that they've done this to me. You're at school, things are going wrong, the government's not doing right by you. There is no point stamping your feet and shouting about it. What we're going to have to do is come to a place and say, well, look, okay, this is where we are. I don't know what I would do in their position, but let me think, well, what can I do for my personal future to improve my lot? It is the only way we will get through this. And I would say this, look, I can't speak about that without saying this. The most important thing for me when I was a teenager, 17 years old, when I gave my life to Christ, it was this understanding that no matter what happens to me or is happening to me, God is not asleep. You know, he's actually in control of my life. And even if I have to go down a few dark alleys in my life and it looks stressful and it looks difficult, he has still got me, right? I'm talking about principles that are universal for us walking through this stressful life. It is making sure we remember that whatever's going on, he has got me. And that means spending time with him, learning to trust him, not just having the cliche terms, but actually knowing who he is and how much he loves us. There you go.
Thank you so much for that advice. I think oftentimes we do forget that God is in control of what's going on and everything like that. So I hope that I can take that to my youth and keep sharing that with them. I know that it has been quite a bit of a different year for everybody. So I think that it's going to help a lot. So thank you so much for that comment and advice. Javier, do you have a question?
I was wanted to say that Auntie Zianda has a hand up. If you would like to ask a question, if you could please type it into the chat so that we may say it to Dr. Chidi, please and thank you.
Yeah, so right now we'll just focus on getting some of the questions through the chat, and then hopefully after we can move into more of a live conversation. Let's see here. We'll just ask you to raise your hands, and then we'll just know how to go from there. And I think Sister Zianda had her hand up first, so we'll just allow her to speak and ask her question. Sister Zianda?
Sorry, Ron, ladies first. My question, first of all, I just to give a background information, Dr. Chidi, thank you so much for that presentation. As a mother of 2 young adults, we have found, I think, especially around this COVID time, that the nights have turned to days and the days are nights. So basically they are sleeping into the, ungodly, well, I don't know, late hours of the day, and it's been winter, so you can't even encourage that they go outside. And then they are sleeping quite late, sometimes I think around some 3, 4 a.m. So what impact is that making in their health, short-term and long-term, and also their susceptibility to catching COVID if that's how they have reprogrammed their bodies?
Yes, well, that's an interesting question. I think everybody's kind of adjusting to this new way of living, because even the adults, the routine is different. Very few of us are going out, putting our shirts on. I haven't put a shirt on like this for a long time. So yes, for the young people, I would ask, well, what are they doing up until 3, 4 in the morning? I mean, you don't need to tell me now. But it is important to try to stay disciplined and have a routine. There's not so many external factors encouraging us to have that routine, but routine is absolutely key. And one of the main reasons, as you mentioned it, getting the right amount of rest. They used to do experiments in the 70s and 80s about why do people actually sleep? Why do we need to sleep? Well, sleep is the time of repair. It's the time when our bodies can physically and emotionally repair. If you don't repair, it's a bit like, you can buy a fantastic, beautiful new car. If you're just not treating it right, 10 years down the line, everything starts to break up. Just little imperfections in our arteries, in our eyes, which have not been repaired properly each night. That leads to devastating problems down the line. Now, when you're young, you're not going to feel it because, oh no, I'm okay. I can't see it. I can't feel it. I'm fine. But every day you are not getting that rest. You are adding to those minor imperfections, and they're not being able to be repaired properly, and you're building up trouble for later down the line. Thank you.
As I said before, I used to play various sports for my school. I'm not sure. Can you hear me properly? Do I need? Okay, so I just need to speak a little louder.
Put it closer.
Right. So I was saying, as I said it before, that I used to play various sports for my school. The person saying that it's echoing. That's why I wouldn't want to speak there instead of to the mic. So my question is, as a person who now is not really being able to, do various sporting activities, what would you recommend for someone like me who would like to, stay healthy, try and no audio. Okay, what is happening? Sorry, I'm not sure if can you hear me?
Can you hear us, Dr. Chidi? Can you hear us? Yeah.
Okay. Can we just let Ronald? Okay. How about we let Ronald Hetland, who had a hand up, can we let him ask his question and we can come back to this later? Mr. Ronald?
Yeah.
That's a good question. The answer to that question will depend on many things. So you've told me that there are a lot of seniors. That's important to know. Also, what's important to know as well, what is the level of infection in your area? What's the level of vaccinations in your area? If I'm going to be brutally honest, I mean, the reason why in England, we closed a bit before the government told us to, was because, at that time, that's when the virus was getting to be at its height. Whatever you do, you can't guarantee that people are not going to get infected. I don't know how you can guarantee that. So that's difficult for a church then to do, to open up for everybody to communicate with each other. But for example, in England now, yes, many people have been vaccinated. In fact, all the senior citizens pretty much all have been vaccinated. So for them, no matter what is said, it's unlikely that they are going to get any serious complications from COVID-19. But I don't think every country, I'm not sure where Canada is on the rollout rate of vaccinations, but it will be dependent on either vaccinations or on the evidence of the virus, because the virus today is not what it was a year ago. A year ago, it was totally detrimental. I mean, getting COVID-19, was killing at about 3%. What the research is telling us now is that it is not doing it at that rate. So, for example, governments like the British government are still saying everybody should be vaccinated. But what we don't know is just how lethal the viruses are. So somebody like me, who doesn't have all the data, I can't possibly tell you. I can't say, well, this is what you should do, because we don't have the data. I don't think many governments have all the data yet. So, which is why they fall back on the vaccine. Because if you got the vaccine, well, whatever happens, you're okay, unless there's a variant, they say. So I can't give you a straight answer, I'm afraid, because I don't think anybody can.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ron, for that question. Is the audio okay? Can you hear me properly?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. So the question that I had was, as a person like me who is not really able to, do the same amount of level of activity that I was doing before, what would you recommend for, I don't know, like things you could do, like say at home eating, stuff you could eat for health as well as like mental health, things to to keep, what is the word? Keep going, keep stay healthy.
Well, okay, let's talk about movement first. So I think staying healthy is about meals, movement, and mindset, right? It's the 3 M's, right? And when it comes to movement, yeah, it can be difficult, especially when you're isolated, to be motivated to get up and do anything. I know your winters are a lot worse than ours, so very few people are going out and venturing outside, but there are things you can do inside. I mean, for many of my patients, I tell them, look, if you can't go outside, you walk around the house. Walk around the house for half an hour, or walk in your garden a bit for half an hour. Do a bit of garden, clear the garden. All of that is good aerobic exercise. Because we're now on Zoom and we can communicate with each other, if you want to keep motivated, find a buddy partner, find some groups who can exercise together online. You can do it in your own home, but you're doing Zoom exercise calls with each other. Meals, definitely healthy, plant-based meals. And the reason why that's so important is because a lot of the fat and the sugar that tastes so nice, I mean, almost as soon as you've swallowed it, you can almost feel that guilt and sadness coming up on you. So what we need to try and do is eat a few things that will raise and elevate our mood. The more healthy plant-based diet you have, the absolute better. And in terms of your mindset, what we've been talking about, use the time creatively. Think about things that you would like to do, like to plan. Get involved in something constructive that keeps your mind off of just yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. Guys have a hand up, so we will pass it to them and they can ask their question.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Chidi, I just want to ask, what would you recommend for supplements for if you have an autoimmune disorder? And also, I don't know if you've heard about a Coimbra protocol. Is a protocol a treatment that uses like high doses of vitamin D.
Right. Okay. Thank you. If you have an autoimmune problem, one of the best vitamins to take, in fact, the best vitamin to take is vitamin D. Reasonably high dose vitamin D. What is the dose? We still don't know, but it will be somewhere between 4,000 and 10,000 units. If you actually have an active disease, it may even be higher than that. But much of the studies that have shown that, what does vitamin D do? It actually suppresses the autoimmune antibodies and boosts the good antibodies, the ones that are going to fight COVID, the ones that are going to fight cancer. So certainly vitamin D, reasonably high dose.
Here that a few of us have had to deal with. I think I might as well ask it. And this is, how do you offer emotional support to a friend, a family, co-worker who has been quarantined, someone who is experiencing symptoms of COVID, and that means isolation? How do we offer this support from a distance?
I think it's about being regular. It's a bit like when something sad happens to somebody, people will gather around in the beginning and then they'll leave and they'll never come back. When people are in that quarantine phase of their disease, they're going to be physically and literally isolated. The wonderful things, on our smartphones and everything, we can stay in touch with people. We can do so much. So if you have somebody who's in that position, well, you draw up a rota of friends and family who are making sure that they're checking in on a regular basis, engaging in the things that he or she likes to engage in on a regular basis, playing games, watching things together. You can actually watch TV programs together, right? You're in your home, I'm in my home, but we're online, but we're watching the same program. So it's just about thinking about that individual and including them in your lives, talking to them on a regular basis, and making sure that their needs are catered for, and sometimes just listening to them.
Thank you.
to make sure that if anyone else has any questions, either post it in the chat or raise your hand so that we don't miss you. Even if it's something like a small question, I'm sure that we can offer up some kind of advice or answer. So we'll just give a moment here just to make sure. Do you guys have any questions?
I think, yep, I could try another one. Most of us, and I know I have said that too, that I'm very good at coping or supporting someone who has physical illness. But mental illness sometimes is a little bit more challenging. And how do we spot when someone really needs that help? And then when you know that, not be judgmental, but also be there to support them.
So this is vital. And I believe it starts with having a network where, I mean, you can't notice if somebody's going through something if you don't know what they're normally like, if you're not noticing them normally. So we need to have good connections within our churches. We need to have good friendships, not just church colleagues who say happy Sabbath to each other, but we need to know each other. And it gets back to what I was talking about this morning, and that is, we all need to find some space to say, look, I'm a normal human being. Whether you're a pastor, deacon, singer, usher, we're all normal human beings. We all have our failings. Let's not pretend. And this is a big problem, pretending that we've got everything together because we're a Seventh-day Adventist. And what we need to start doing is saying, look, I fail just as much as the next man and woman. If we have that kind of environment, then people can let down their guard and we can show who we really are. Because one of the big problems is, you say, how do we detect it? Well, most people have their guards up so much, it's almost impossible. Everybody looks so fantastic at church. Everybody looks like they've got everything together. And they do that for a reason, because if they let their guard down, oh my goodness, I'll be slaughtered. So if we can have a church which allows people to be real, and we don't all have to pretend, that would go a long way in helping us identify. And when we do identify, again, it's compassion. It's, it's not condemnation. It's all about, well, how do we get help? How do we get help? Great.
One more question there in the chat, and it's from Miss Polly there, and she says, does a high intake of spices affect the health of an already unhealthy stomach?
Okay, yes, good question, because certain spices can irritate the stomach. Black pepper can irritate the stomach if you have a sensitive stomach. So you need to know which ones that you need, but those spices are there. They are natural medications, and they are absolutely powerful. And usually, for most of us, they don't have any major side effects. But yes, if you have a sensitive stomach, they may cause a problem. But if you do have a sensitive stomach, the thing is to get rid of the sensitive stomach. Find out what is the root cause of the sensitive stomach, and then you'll be able to do what you need to do.
Extension to this, she said, many people are confused as to which vitamin D brand to take. Do you find any that you would recommend in terms of a brand?
I should actually start up my own brand now, because I promote it so much. But I can tell you the ones that I use. I use one called Nutravita. That is, you can find that on Amazon. There is also Liquid Sunshine and Nature's Answer. Those are three that I've used, and I think they're all plant-based and quite safe. But I have been looking into doing my own vitamin D. So look out for the Dr. Chidi brand soon, please.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I would I have one more question in terms of thinking of our young adults and maybe our children within our church. And there's several parents here on this call, and I think they would appreciate maybe this question. How would I talk to or give advice to some of the younger children that may not understand the reasons behind why we're in isolation or why we have to stay at home, why they cannot go see their friends? I think that might be a difficult topic, or not really know how to explain just because they are so young and you don't, maybe don't want to scare them or stress them. So what do you think we can do, or what kind of an explanation can we give to our younger children that are growing up within our church and outside of church as well?
Yeah, I think, yep, all these great questions, I must say. I have a 5-year-old daughter myself, and she talks more about the virus than I do. You'll be surprised how resilient and accommodating children are. They were not raised like us, right? So in my day, yeah, we were protected from so much, but many of the children that I'm seeing now, they talk about the virus like it's okay, it's a virus. When's the virus going away? As soon as it goes away, we can see each other. But I think the thing for children is to give them that little light at the end of the tunnel, to be able to say to them, hey, once this is over, we can A, B, and C. We look forward to, on Monday in Great Britain, we're easing down the lockdown even further. So children all know about this. I would just say, yes, we don't want to frighten them, but at the other hand, they are pretty resilient human beings. They know, I mean, my daughter knew about him. She was 4 when it all started. She was not fazed by it at all. And it's not because of me, it's just in school they talk about it.
Much. I just wanted to ask if you have more to present or if you are complete with your presentation at this point.
No, I'm good. I'm done. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I do have a question. This comes from Roxanne Clarke, and she says that some are finding it difficult to breathe in the masks, but they have to wear them every day for work and such. So what strategies would you recommend to help with that challenge?
Yeah, it's not good. You see, in my early days, I used to be a surgeon, right? So I think 10 hours a day I was breathing into a mask in a hot theater. I mean, it was awful. I've never gotten used to it. I don't particularly like it, but I think the thing is to find the type of mask that gives you a bit of room. I started at the beginning of the pandemic wearing a little bit of a bandana around my face, looking like a bandit, because it gave you a bit more ease, and it flowed a bit more and it wasn't so tight to your face. But depending on the job you do, you may have to wear these masks. So yeah, it's finding the right one that, the lightest one, I would say, that works for you.
Perfect. Dr. Carroll, do you have a question?
Well, I was just thinking, Dr. Chidi, you spoke about the spiritual me, you spoke about exercise, and you talked about a healthy diet. And I know that for most of us who are working from home, wonder if you'd shed some light on meditation and how that might help us now.
Yeah, meditation, getting into that place where you can focus on the things that are deeper and more important. People say to me, well, I don't know how to meditate. I don't want to meditate. What is all that about? And I always ask them, if you've ever worried about something, you've meditated on something, right? Because when you're worrying, you're meditating negatively on something. But what I like to tell people to do is, yeah, okay, there's prayer, and then there's that focus on the positive, the focus on, well, what can I do in this space that can give me peace? Everything is turning off the news every now and again, right? Because the news just gives us everything bad, puts us into this place of anxiety and stress. Shut that down and start thinking about, well, what possibly good can I bring out of this? Because there must be something. God must have a plan for me in this pandemic. So I often tell people just, at least half an hour a day. Give yourself half an hour a day to stand in your garden, stand in a quiet place, pray, meditate, think about what possibly positive thing can come out of this. I do it myself.
Perfect. As an extension to a little bit what you were talking about in terms of the media, do you believe or do you think that people are being more anxious by the virus, or the fact that the media is making it bigger than it is, possibly just because they are giving us maybe the worst of the worst news? Do you think that people are more anxious by the virus or because of what the media is telling us?
Yeah, I guess the media is a beast that feeds itself by feeding us negatives. I mean, the media rarely wants to tell us anything positive, because if things are positive, we all put our feet up. The media likes to tell us everything that's negative. If you ever hear a report about a fireman on the news, it's because they've done something wrong, not because they've done their normal good job. I think that the media and the government want to make it clear to us that things are very difficult and that we should obey the rules. And the way to get us to obey the rules is to tell us how difficult things are. I'm not sure to the extent as which that is exaggerated. I know in England, I mean, for example, when you look at cases, COVID deaths, pretty much worldwide, the COVID deaths are people who have died within 28 days of a positive COVID test. Now that could mean any kind of death, but that's still categorized as a COVID death. And I'm using that example, that's because it all leads to a higher number that we see, and which makes us more afraid. I don't know whether it's manipulation, but I know they want us to. The idea is to either keep us isolated or give us the vaccine, then we can get out of this. So to get everybody to obey the rules, we have a certain narrative.
And I think there's one question in the chat before we might have to wrap up, so we'll see in just a second. But Polly asks, why is it vitamin D3? She says that she has not realized before, as opposed to there being another number next to vitamin D. So do you know why it is vitamin D3 specifically? Or is that just, that's what it is?
Yeah, vitamin D3. So when we make vitamin D, when the sun hits our skin and we make vitamin D, it's called vitamin D2. It then passes to our kidneys where it gets activated. So the active form of vitamin D is vitamin D3. So rather than taking vitamin D2, you may as well take the active form. That's all.
And we're just going to have to take that last hand that is raised in the chat, and all I can see is a letter A. So whoever that is, you can unmute yourself and ask your question before we move forward.
One of the questions that I have for you, Dr. Chidi, is that I know the restrictions have been removed where we can meet in person in groups of 10, and in some organizations 30. What do you think about that? And I know as well there has been restriction removed where the isolation process has moved from I think it's about 14 days to 10 days. And why is that necessary for the restriction of contracting the virus from persons who are coming from different parts of different countries coming into Canada? Why has it been lessened to 10 days and not 14 days been fixed?
Yeah, I think to answer the second question, thank you. To answer the second question, the evidence has come out that, well, 10 days is probably the best fit, simply because I mean, we started on 14 days right at the beginning, but as we've been, not we, as these scientists have been examining it, they've realized that after 10 days, there's really no point in having people restricted because there's very little evidence that people pass on or transmit the virus after 10 days. With regard to the numbers of people that can congregate, and as I say, that is going to be dependent on the level of disease in the society, country, community, and the susceptibility of people who are in the community. And it also goes on to feed the idea of, well, you know, who should get a vaccine? Well, no individual can tell another one, you must do it, because we don't know your disease state, your background, your history, or whatever. You must make that decision for yourself on the data.
Thank you so much again for everyone that had their questions and the comments that were in the chat. At this time, we were just wondering, Dr. Chidi, if you could share your screen with your contact information, just that if anyone has any further questions, they might forward those questions to you. We don't want to keep you up too much longer, as we know there is a bit of a time difference. So if everyone that is on the Zoom call, if you would like to take note of his contact information, I'm sure Dr. Chidi would love to hear your questions and answer them. So once again, we are so grateful for the information and everything that you have shared with us this morning and again this afternoon. And I can say that all of my co-hosts are grateful to you as well. I don't know if you guys have any final words.
Nope.
No, we just want to thank the audience, thank everyone for joining us today, this morning, and again this afternoon, Dr. Chidi, for staying up for us. We are so grateful. We have learned lots, and we look forward to having you again. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
And it's wonderful to be back with you all again. And yes, I look forward to one of these days us being able to meet in person. But thank you so much, and may God continue to bless you all.
Perfect. Okay, I just got word that we are going to try actually Elder Maria's presentation. It should not be too long, so hopefully you can just hang on just for a few more minutes if that is okay, and then shortly after we will conclude. So we will get Elder Maria there, and hopefully you will be able to see her presentation.
So what is loneliness? Loneliness is a feeling, something you and I feel at one time or another. Anyone can be lonely and sad, alone, or even feel abandoned, but we usually recover from it quite easily. On the other hand, a lonely person is not necessarily a person sitting by themselves, because we can still feel lonely even in a crowd of people. Now let's talk about solitude and loneliness. Hi.
questions to ask.
Hi, everyone.
Yes.
Hi everyone, welcome to our Health Emphasis Weekend. I'm glad that you are joining us today. So what is loneliness? Loneliness is a feeling. So what? Hi everyone, welcome to our Health Emphasis Weekend. I'm glad that you are joining us today. Loneliness is an emerging mental health concern among the elderly. We will be talking about the characteristics of loneliness, the statistics, why loneliness is viewed as a medical diagnosis in itself, and what can be done about it. So what is loneliness? Loneliness is a feeling, something you and I feel at one time or another. Anyone can be lonely and sad, alone, or even feel abandoned, but we usually recover from it quite easily. On the other hand, a lonely person is not necessarily a person sitting by themselves, because we can still feel lonely even in a crowd of people. Now let's talk about solitude and loneliness. Let's not confuse the two because they are not the same. A man sitting by himself by the kitchen table reading a newspaper is in a place of solitude. When we retreat to a quiet corner after a long day at work is solitude. Morning devotions in a quiet place in the house, just you and God, is a place of solitude. In fact, Jesus retreated to a quiet place each day to talk to God the Father. On the other hand, loneliness is that sense of emptiness and separateness. My research shows that there is a correlation between loneliness and social isolation. Statistics in this 2008-2009 survey by the Canadian Community Healthy Aging shows that 525,000 people, that's 12% of the people surveyed, age 65 and older, felt socially isolated. Why? Because we are naturally social creatures. God designed us that way. It was Adam and Eve right from the beginning. God himself is relational. He spent time with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. There were people around us the day we were born. We did not come out of nowhere. Our moms gave birth to us. We were social right from the start, and to undo that means a loss. Being social and having fellowship with people around us is very essential to our existence. Statistics regarding loneliness are compelling. It shows that loneliness increases the likelihood of mortality by 26%. Lacking social connections is as damaging to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Coronary bypass patients who report feeling lonely have a mortality rate 5 times higher than other patients 30 days post-surgery. Lonely individuals have a 64% increased chance of developing clinical dementia, and people who are lonely report 5% more severe symptoms in the common cold than those who are less lonely. So who is likely to experience loneliness? It all boils down to what we call life transitions, or those inevitable occurrences as part of our life cycle. Let's call these risk factors, meaning that if this is a circumstance in a person's life, chances are that person may be feeling lonely. Now there are 8 listed here, and there could be more, but these are the common ones. So the elderly at risk for loneliness are those living alone, retired, or whose spouse has already passed away. Persons who are 80 or older because of shrinking social network. These persons' contemporaries or friends may have passed away and very few are left. It could be due to changing family structures, such as children moved away for work, or having no children or no contact with family. Relocation is another risk factor, or a change of residence, or co-residence, including people who are living in institutions or those in hospitals. Or it could be due to declines in physical and mental health or age-related illnesses. Losing a driver's license or lacking access to transport or transportation hinders socialization opportunities. those living with low income, and challenges relating to technology, including access and costs and not knowing how to use technology like smartphones, computer, social media, and even parking meters. So can a person die of loneliness? As mentioned earlier, loneliness is usually brief. However, feelings of loneliness may worsen and continue long-term and can lead to chronic loneliness. While a person can't die simply from feeling too lonely, findings that lonely people have higher rates of mortality and certain diseases supports the idea that over time, chronic loneliness can play a role in increasing the risk of dying. What is chronic loneliness? It occurs when loneliness and social isolation is sustained for a long period of time to such an extent that the affected person has constant and unrelenting feelings of being alone and is unable to relate and connect with another person on a deeper level. Now, does chronic loneliness affect the brain? Yes, because of mind and body connection. Research shows that chronic loneliness can have a significant impact on the overall health, including the brain, affecting concentration, decision-making, problem-solving, ultimately leading to depression. Research studies even suggest a link between loneliness and the risk for dementia, the Alzheimer's type. I remember attending a training, and one of the activities was for us to put ourselves in the shoes of a person with dementia and answer the question, "What is your greatest fear about having dementia?" My answer was, when I cannot recognize my family anymore. I'd be longing for them, and in my disease, I wouldn't know that they were there with me the whole time. After I said that, a very strong feeling of loss and loneliness swept over me that I got very emotional. Is there something we can do about loneliness? Yes. First, let's be intentional, because someone we know may be lonely. Who are the elderly within our immediate sphere or immediate circle? Let's go back to the 8 risk factors. Let's examine that person along with the risk factors. Is this person possibly lonely or chronically lonely? How can we help? Encourage the person to share their thoughts and feelings, because being able to unload the burden of loneliness to someone willing to listen is very helpful. Teach the person how to use social media like computers and phones and others. Visit a friend or a family. There are a few innovative ways now to visit. Through a phone call, virtual or online, a drive-by, and other means. I found an excerpt from the book Dementia Beyond Disease, 2nd edition, by Dr. R.I.P. This person with dementia shared his experience with him, saying, "After I was diagnosed, my friends stopped coming around to see me. Finally, I called one of them and asked him, 'Why don't you come to see me anymore?' He said, 'Richard, I just didn't know what to say.' I said to him, 'How about hello?' Get involved in a ministry that visits people. Example, Pinehouse Church has a seniors ministry, youth ministry, the children's ministry, the Pathfinder, jail ministry, so on and so forth. Sign up as a volunteer in organizations such as Sunnyside Adventist Care Center, a long-term care home in Saskatoon, although at this time, volunteers are not allowed in yet. Send a note or a letter to an elderly person, even to those in jail. Spot for signs of loneliness once you get the chance to be with this person. When was the last time you've seen this person outside of their home? Are they socially isolated? How is their support system? Was there a recent loss of a spouse or friend? Assist by finding and facilitating a social group for this individual. Was available in your community or in your church? Is their health failing? Any signs of depression? Crying a lot? Failing memory? Hard of hearing? Fear of driving? Now, is there any help available for seniors through the government? Definitely. The website www.canada.ca/seniors provides information on seniors' benefits and services. For Saskatchewan, go to www.saskatchewan.ca for information on family and social support, services, and programs for seniors. In Saskatoon, we have the Saskatoon Council on Aging. It connects older adults with learning and social opportunities and promote positive aging by helping them stay active, engaged, and informed. The Bible has reassurance for everyone with regards to loneliness. For the seniors and elderly, please be comforted by the words of Isaiah as he reassures us of God's abiding presence in Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. For the rest of us, we have a reminder from the book of Galatians in Galatians 6:2 and 10. Galatians 6:2, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. In Galatians 6:10, therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. To summarize, loneliness is a common feeling that brushes over us at any point in life, but it is usually short-lived. Loneliness becomes a concern when sustained and experienced by a person for a long period of time. In fact, it is now considered as a medical illness that needs to be diagnosed and treated. Loneliness can have serious effects on the brain, which suggests a link between loneliness, depression, and dementia of the Alzheimer's type. As a church, there are various things we can do together to assist and support the lonely in our family, congregation, or community. Let us reach out. Thanks for listening. My presentation ends here.
Thank you so much, Elder Maria, for the lovely presentation. We're so glad that we were somewhat able to make it work. We are again so thankful for Dr. Chidi, who was able to come speak to us this morning, and of course this afternoon as well. I just want to do the little conclusion. I'm so thankful again for everyone that has been able to join us through Zoom, and for those of you that are watching us live on YouTube as well. So that's my little thank you. Do you guys have anything else to add before we close in prayer?
Yeah, I want to thank you all for your questions, and also Dr. Chidi for answering the questions that we had today. And we want to wish everyone a very good evening.
Elder Maria, we didn't ask you a lot of questions, but we thank you for the presentation. It's always good for us to be reminded, as Dr. Chidi said, that together as we walk, we will make a difference. And so we just thank you. Pastor Asher is sitting here. She's supposed to be on vacation, but she's that minute person who is helping us with media. And so our media team, we want to thank you so much for everything. Will you bow your heads with me? Dear Father, we are so grateful to Thee. This has been a day of new learnings, of reviving old learnings, of helping us to realize that, as Dr. Chidi says, there are some positive things that may come out of COVID-19, and to help us to remember to look for the positives, to look for the good in others. Help us to remember each day to reach out to someone, whether it be our church family, our own family, or just someone in need. Help us to look for those moments. And Father, may we be blessed. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks, everyone. We look forward to another Health Ministries weekend.